Hey guys, welcome back. We are pretty much done with the composition side of things in terms of up to our drop. Um, and what I'd like to do now is sort of shift gears, and what we want to do now is just go back and revisit all of the previous parts that we've created. And we need to do two things. One is layer and touch things up, and two is we need to process things. So this is where the drums are going to sound thicker. All of the sound design that we've done is going to be, grittier, more lively, fatter as well. And so the reason I like to do this at this point is because I already have a very good idea of what elements in my track are going to exist together in the same space. So this is a good point to start and get your baseline of mixing started. So that way, once you get to the end, you already have your foundation in terms of what it takes to make your song sound good, and it won't be a mess at the end that you want to pull your hair out over. So let's just go ahead and actually, I'm going to give you a re-listen of what we have up to this point. And keep in mind, there will be things that sound out of place or some things that don't sound quite polished yet. And then I'm going to comment on what I've picked out and what I think needs work. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so towards the end there, I was having a little bit of CPU issues. So a couple of those sounds might have not sounded quite as good as they would have otherwise. However, during this period, it's also good to look at how you can optimize your project. And that has a lot to do with freezing tracks that you're not currently working on, or just rendering things down altogether so that you just have the audio and then you can process it from that point on. So that will go hand in hand with what we're doing here. In terms of what I think we need to do moving forward is all of our bass sounds need more layering. They need more processing because they sound a little bit thin just in terms of the overall spectrum. So, and another big thing is we really need more percussion. You know, right now we really just have that basic drum and beat kind of, or drum and bass kind of beat going on. We want more interesting things happening, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the listener needs to hear all of these elements, but we need more percussion filling up the spectrum. And I guess one last note would be that I think we need some sort of melody here when it does the second phase of the drop. Whether that's just an arpeggio or we do put some vocal chops in there as well. Regardless, it needs something. So alongside that, what I like to do at this stage is also put a limiter on my master channel so that I can start hearing how my song is going to sound once it reaches that final mastering stage. Because you don't want to get to the end of your project and then, start, you put it through a limiter and it sounds like, oh no, suddenly the kick has a bunch of problems. Or some other instrument is dropping out at a certain part because it's hitting the limiter so hard. You want to be able to catch that ahead of time so that you can adjust your levels. You can go into your instruments and adjust their peaks on an individual basis so that you don't have any single instrument causing a big problem for your whole song when it gets to the mastering stage. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm just going to grab a FabFilter limiter here. And I'll need to copy this limiter onto the capture as well, just so that the limiter, because you guys aren't hearing what's going through the master, you're basically hearing a copy of the master. So I just need to remember to put everything I do on the master onto that capture channel as well. So, and I'm just explaining that so you don't get confused when I add another limiter somewhere here. All right, so let's put this through here. And okay, we have instantly some CPU issues. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to gain stage this, because the only way to get the limiter on FabFilter's limiter to work is to drag the gain up until it hits the ceiling. And because that's extremely loud on my end, what I'm going to need to do is grab a utility and put it afterwards and just bring it down by the same amount that I'm boosting by. Okay, that's obviously way too much. Let's bring it down. Okay, still way too much. You don't need to slam it here. You just want to get an idea of, what in your track is hitting the limiter so that you can address it ahead of time. Okay, I think maybe just another couple dB, and that'll be good. I am, however, having a couple of CPU issues, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the capture, and I'm going to freeze a couple things, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So I have the two limiters set up, and I've got a good chunk of my tracks frozen here, so hopefully I won't be having any CPU issues for a little bit here. So I just wanted to show you guys a little A and B comparison between having the limiter on and having the limiter off. So I have a key binding here that turns off the limiter for me when I press it. And let's take a listen to the differences. Right now, we'll have the limiter off. So let's just take a quick listen. Okay, now I'll turn it on. So the main thing I'm noticing is that when I turn the limiter on, the drums instantly sound quieter. Now this isn't necessarily a bad thing because right now it doesn't sound like it's affecting the rest of the song. However, that information is valuable to us because now we know that our drums are hitting the limiter before anything else, which is typical because drums tend to be the loudest thing in your song, at least when it comes to this genre. But what we can do with that information is we can hop into our drums on the individual tracks and we can start trying to control the peaks on each channel individually so that their max level isn't quite as loud, and so they don't hit the master limiter quite as hard, because the less they hit the master limiter, the less it's going to affect the rest of the instruments. So I'll show you a few tricks that we can do with that. The first, obviously, the kick drum is going to be our main priority here, as that is going to be the loudest drum, if not the loudest thing in our song overall. So let's hop right into here and let's grab a limiter. And I'm also going to put in this plugin that I really like to use a lot of the time when I'm doing something like this. If I can just find it here. Yes, Smexoscope. What this plugin does is it lets you see the waveform of your audio after whatever processing you've done to it. So obviously I can see the wave of my kick right here, but that's the wave that exists before I do anything to it down here. And what Smexoscope lets me do is compare how the wave looks in here to how it looks after I put it through an effect, such as a limiter. So as we can see, if I turn the limiter off and I play it, the wave is going to look identical. And I think we can zoom in here. There we go. So yes. But if we put it through a limiter, as you can see in Smexoscope, that peak in the beginning gets smaller. So our objective here is to limit this as much as we can without affecting the kick sound overall, because we don't want this to be obvious. Let's bring that down a little bit. And if we set a really short release time, we can bring down the peak of the first part initially without affecting what comes after it too much. Okay, so that's bringing our kick down by about 3 decibels. But in terms of the audible difference, it does not sound like it's really getting much quieter. And basically the idea here is that we want to do this with each instrument so that their impact on the overall master limiter is less. And next episode, I'm going to show you how we can take this concept even further by doing a little bit of volume automation. So I'll do that on the next episode, and I'll see you then.